You may wonder what this paraphernalia on the ground is for. When you're coaching bowling, you'll find a lot of children have trouble coordinating their actions. And I find it very easy to use a piece of string and this paraphernalia in order to obviate that problem. I'm going to have Francois here who's going to help me. Come on, Francois. What I want you to do first, Francois, is stretch that piece of string between your arms as tight as possible. Okay, that's good. Now I want to put your right foot, Francois, between those two cones at the back, and your left foot in between those two cones there. Okay, right, now you have a basic bowling action position, and now I'm going to ask Francois to take the string back down to his right leg, all right, and then I'm going to ask Francois to take the string with the front arm right the way through to the front cones, at the same time bringing his right leg through with it. Okay, Francois, ready? And pull. That's it, good, okay. Now you've seen basically the bowling action in one go. Let's see Francois do it again. And pull. Okay, just a slight change. What we asked to do is to ask Francois to pull the arm through at the same time as the leg, not the leg first, okay? So arm and then leg, okay. Again, just to see what's happening. Arm first, Francois, and then leg. That's it, good. When we coach bowling, it's very important, before you start, that you actually teach the basic action. And there are 5 basic principles in that action which you have to adhere to. And we're going to go through those now. Okay, guys? Are you ready? First of all, I want you to stand with your back foot, right, parallel to what is the crease, using the cone as your crease. Okay, that's good. Slide your left foot up, toe to your heel. Okay, turn your hip sideways to me. Okay, use your shoulder as your sight and lift your left arm. Put your right hand in front of you underneath your chin, aiming the ball down the wicket. Okay, that's position 1. That's what we call the gather. Position 2, we unfold, ready to bowl the ball. Allow the hands to unfold so they're both straight, as though you're reaching for the edge of a wheel or whatever you can think of to make them go as far apart as possible. Okay, from there, position 3, we step forward towards the batsman, taking the head forward, okay, bringing the hands parallel to the ground, okay? Don't forget to use your front arm as a sight towards the batsman there, okay? Once you get to that position, we move into position 4, which is the delivery position, by rotating the hands forward and up high as possible, next to your ear, next to the ear there, right, making sure that the ball will go down straight down the wicket, and the left arm down here to the side. Okay, that's the delivery position. And now finally, we have the follow through, which is very important. The head must go down the wicket, and we must bring the right hip through in order to make that ball go down straight. Ready? And through, and follow through, and hold it there. That's very good. Okay, so that's the basic action, and make sure that you practice that as much as possible.
The common factor for all bowlers is that they must propel the ball down towards the batsman. Study these bowlers and try to copy them.
We're going to deal with fast bowling today, and there are 2 basic aspects. One is seam bowling, which is hitting the seam, the other is swing bowling, making the ball swing. And with me today I have Craig Matthews, the South African fast bowler. Craig, let's see your grip for the seaming the ball.
Well, Bob, I try to get the seam pretty much as straight as possible in my hand, and top 2 fingers just touching on either side of the seam, and the thumb on the side of the thumb right down in the middle of the seam below the ball.
And this little gap here, that's for comfort?
Very much so, and also gives me a lot more control and tends to let the ball release a bit easier and making it maybe a bit quicker than normal.
And how important is the wrist when it comes over the top, Craig?
Well, the vital thing is that it stays straight in order to have the best possible chance of hitting the seam on the wicket.
Let's talk to Walter and Dale from the Plascon Academy about swing bowling. Walter, let's see your grip for the outswinger. Okay, let's look at this one and analyse it. First of all, we've got the seam pointing to first slip. Okay, the fingers are running down the wicket, but the seam is actually pointing towards first slip.
which would encourage the ball to swing. Remember, the seam should be used as a rudder where possible. And notice the side of the thumb underneath the seam there, as Craig said before. Okay, the other thing that's very important to remember is the fact that the wrist is cocked backwards. This will help you to hold that position so that when you bowl, the ball will go down correctly. Okay, it'll hold the seam upright and swing away. Okay, let's have a look at the difference. We've got Dale here with the in-swing. The difference is, watch, there's the wrist cocked here, and the other wrist is angled down. So let's analyse Dale. First of all, you'll notice the thumb is not on the side anymore, it's more on the flat. He's actually pushed his hands over the ball in order to get the seam going in towards the batsman and towards leg slip. So again, we're using the seam as a rudder. Let's have a look at the difference. Right, there's the seam cocked backwards, there's the seam pushed forwards there. Okay, let's have a look at it from the side. Notice the wrists, the very different positions. We've dealt briefly with swing and seam, but there are times when it doesn't swing and it doesn't seam. And Craig, how do you handle that when the ball actually doesn't swing or seam?
Yeah, you're quite right, Bob. Sometimes on the certain wickets you can't get it to swing and seam. And maybe a variation, like an off-cutter, leg cutter, slow balls are what you've got to work on.
How do you hold the ball for your off-cutter then?
Well, I hold the ball like that, slightly with the seam in, fingers across like that. Seam maybe a bit more angled to the onside, a bit more than the in-swinger. And when I deliver, to try and actually turn the ball into the batsman off the wicket.
So you're actually using your wrist there, actually making a cutting action.
Yes.
Cutting down beside the ball.
Very much so.
That?
Very much so. At point of delivery, to bring the ball in, to turn your hand over to get it to come in off the wicket.
Right. And do you have another variation? Do you actually look to bowl a leg cutter as well?
Yeah, I do. It's maybe, I think, a bit more difficult to bowl the leg cutter. Very much the grip the same way, except to the opposite direction. Also angled maybe to gully, holding the ball like that, but less of a wrist movement, more maybe of your hand sort of falling over on the side of the ball to get it to go off the wicket.
Right. And the faster your hand comes down, the more purchase you get, I presume.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, I think you get the ball to do more off the wicket and at a better pace.
Right. Now, it doesn't seam, it doesn't swing, it doesn't cut. What variations do you have left?
Well, I think one of the variations that are most important is a variation in pace, which often messes batsmen up. And by using slow balls and sometimes maybe a bit of a quicker ball, an extra effort ball is worth trying out.
So, your slow ball, how do you hold it for that?
I hold it with the seam just not too much angled away, but to get a good grip on the ball. And when I come into the wicket, I try to turn my hand over as quickly as possible, more than maybe to the off-cutter, in order to let the ball release out and a bit slower than normal.
There you are. Now you see you've got all those different variations. You've got to be practicing them. Slow balls, there are other variations. You can bowl leg spinners at full pace. As long as your arm comes over quickly, you're going to deceive the batsman. You can let the ball slip out. And there was an Australian bowler called Alan Connolly who had the knuckle ball.